Welcome to the premier sports podcast. That's right, ACR. I'm your host, Alexander Cook, aka AC, and today I'm going to bring you what you've been waiting for, your season preview podcast for ACR. Now, August 21st today was a very interesting day for a number of reasons. The first of which, we had a solar eclipse today, which I'm sure was very exciting for those listeners who were able to see it. And if you are able to, please do send me an email at aconpodcast@gmail.com. I'll mention you. I'll tell the folks here at ACON a little bit about your solar eclipse story. Here, you got a little, I'm not going to tell you exactly where I'm located, but in North Carolina, we got a little bit of a solar eclipse, a partial solar eclipse. That was our situation here. But I'm sure for you, it might have been different. All right, so now what you've been waiting for, it's our CFB Season Preview right here on AC on our very first podcast. I want to thank you for giving us a chance. Now, last year, I had a podcast. It was called Gridiron Glory. I initially started with a friend of mine, Cole Wolfgang, but later on, he decided that it wasn't right for him, so he decided to quit. It went okay, but this year I was thinking, I just need to sweep the board clean. This year, it's just going to be me, and we're going to put all kinds of work into this to make this a great experience for all the listeners out there. Okay, so basically, here's the information that's boring, but you probably need to know. First of all, I do have a YouTube page. You can find that in the YouTube description or on any of my Twitter pages. I do have actually a couple Twitter pages, one for myself and one for the podcast. And I do have a Weebly site, gridironglorysportsblog.weebly.com. I should mention I also have a SoundCloud site, soundcloud.com/ACONpodcast. Now, before we get into the minutia of college football, but a lot of fun minutia there, I also want to mention that our podcast, the goal of the podcast is to give you the hashtag AC Cold Truth by your favorite teams, which, of course, are trash in reality. Whether you like it or not, we're going to give you that cold truth. And we're going to break it down for you. From the big, eye-popping news that you probably already heard about with your team to, those little nuggets that provide for a very interesting conversation. I want to bring it all in here and just provide an amazing experience for you as the listener. Maybe you're just coming from work, you just want to sit down, you want to relax, maybe, grab a cup of tea, cup of coffee, maybe just some water would be nice, a soda, glass of wine, whatever it may be, just want to grab that, sit down, and just relax and have something to do. Just get that breakdown of the news. So I just want to bring you everything, from the big news to the little nuggets that are going to provide that interesting conversation. So, once again, before we get into the CFB, one last thing. Our podcast times during the CFB and NFL seasons, we focus on CFB and NFL, but there is a potential to go into other sports. We'll update you on that as the year goes on. All right, so starting with Sunday morning, I'm going to recap CFB action, preview the upcoming NFL action. Don't worry, it's going to be earlier than most NFL pregame shows. Give you the exact time on that as soon as I can. That's Sunday. Tuesday night, I'm going to recap the NFL Sunday and Monday Night Football action. Also just break down the day in sports for you. Wednesday night, I'm going to do a TNF, Thursday Night Football, and Thursday Night CFB prediction series. Also give you the news of the day. But more importantly, I've got something new going. It's caller night, so shoot me an email at aconpodcast@gmail.com with your number or post it in the chat, and I'll be active on that. Is I will be doing a live stream definitely on Wednesday nights. I'm going to try and be consistent on the time there. And I'm also going to try for Sunday mornings and Tuesday nights. But if you give me that number, I'll give you a call anonymously. And on Friday nights for CFB season only, who's got the might and who's in the flight, I'm going to recap TNF and preview the Saturday CFB action. So it's going to be good, and it's going to be a very fun year, I think. We're going to bring you, once again, all that great news that you want to hear. But now that we're done with this, I'm ready to start talking about what you came here to hear about. It's college football. I want to get started with two interesting things, and these do not have much to do with the season ahead. But they're interesting conversations, and I think they really connect with one another. The first conversation is something that Chris Sims reinforced, and I'm just going to bring you what he said. You might have seen this already, but I thought it was interesting. He said that he admits to getting $100 handshakes from boosters while in college, so he was paid by them to sign. Of course, that is illegal, but that brings an interesting thing. If these boosters are paying to get signed jerseys and to distribute those, why do we need to do it that way? He's a huge proponent, one of many, of paying college athletes, and that's the second conversation. So while we can criticize his actions, for breaking the law for that, we also need to consider these college athletes aren't being paid. But should they be paid? That's the question here. Should college athletes be paid? Now, many people believe, okay, you're in college, right? You are getting your own education. You are paying for your education, right? Most of you won't make it to the NFL, so you got to pay for your education. Do you get paid in high school? No. You do it for fun. If you don't want to do it for fun, no. You should not get paid. But some people believe that they should be paid. Because if the university is generating so much revenue from their college programs, especially in college football, if you're performing well, just like the coaches, you should be deserved at least something to cover your education. So it's a very interesting conversation. But once again, I want to bring up, no one is forcing these folks to play. No one is saying you have to go play or blah blah is going to happen to you. No. Now there's some scholarships that are going to entice you to play if you're really good, but what about other people? You just want to get some pay, right? You don't want to have to go to the NFL to get some pay. You want to be able to pay off your education. Even if you don't have NFL aspirations, you just want to be able to go through college, and get paid for your talent, right? A business person is going to get paid for their talent if they do a good job. So why shouldn't the athlete get paid, especially the college sharing all this revenue? But also, you're not going there to play, or supposedly you're not supposed to. You're going there to get your education. So a very interesting conversation there. Please feel free to talk about in the comments. I'd be very interested to see the type of reaction we get here. I'll also be doing a Twitter post on this because I think this is just such a fascinating conversation. A huge ongoing debate. Should college athletes get paid? But now I want to shift our attention to college football, to the college football preview. I've got two main lists that I want to bring up. Two very important lists. First, the AP Top 25 that came out today, Solar Eclipse Day. So you can see, podcast on the day of the AP Top 25. I'm going to be going through that and breaking it down one by one. I've also got the ESPN Football Power Index, measuring team strength here. And this should be quite interesting as we get into that. I'm going to break down the conferences. I'm going to break down my top 4 predictions. It's all going on the line right here as you are going to hear the AC Cold Truth on AC On. All right, let's begin with the AP Top 25. Who's at number 25? Tennessee. Now, let's go back to last year for Tennessee. Great start, ranked start. People thought with Josh Dobbs at QB, who of course now is actually making some noise playing preseason football for the Steelers. They thought, this team has the potential maybe to go into the SEC championship, maybe to beat Alabama, maybe to reach great things. Now, most of us weren't thinking, hey, this Tennessee team's going to the Final Four or so. But we did think they were going to do pretty well, right? Well, here is how the year went down for them. And it was a roller coaster year. I will say it was a fun year looking from the outside in. But here's how it went down. They actually finished 9-4, which was just behind Florida there. So that's actually pretty good. Let me tell you how it began. Okay, first of all, you come out against App State, and in overtime, you pull off a win. Then you go out to play Virginia Tech. It began slow as the Hokies got a 14-0 lead, but then bang, 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 Tennessee went all over the Hokies, and they got a W there. Then they played Ohio, not at the best comfort level in that game against Ohio, but they did get the win. Florida, a better one. Georgia, a good one, but very close. That was a Hail Mary win. You might have remembered that. Last second, Josh Dobbs to the end zone, somehow caught, and then things turned. Texas A&M, in overtime, they got the win. And after that, Alabama just went all over Tennessee as they got an easy win there. Then they lose to South Carolina. After that, they dance all over Tennessee Tech. In a shootout, they get a win over Kentucky. And then Missouri, in another shootout, they get the win. And believe it or not, they lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Vanderbilt of all teams. So quite the interesting thing. And then they went to beat Nebraska 38-24 in the Music City Bowl. Last year was supposed to be the Tennessee Volunteers' football year, but they didn't capitalize. This year, what are you looking at? What are you looking at in terms of their strength? Well, first of all, let's break down the schedule. The first thing that first team you're looking at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, not the strongest team on all sides of the ball, not the best. Historically at least, they've been not good at throwing the ball. And ESPN FBI is strongly in favor here of Tennessee by a good margin. And at this point, the idea is that the winner here would be Tennessee. Now, this is going to be a game on ESPN Top Game because it is on Labor Day, so one not to miss. Next up, we have Tennessee against Indiana State, which is an easy one. So at this point, they're 2-0, maybe 1-1. Then you play Florida. Florida, not the wellest-rounded team, not quite that level that you want. with a good football team. But Florida overall does have the experience of going to SEC championship games. They do know how to play at a high level. So right now, I would give that one to Florida. Their defense has just been insane across the past years. Then we go to UMass, easy one. Georgia, that's where things get a little shaky. I'm giving Georgia the win. I feel like they're well-rounded overall. Not the best team, not in Alabama level, but not in Auburn level. But I'm going to give that one to Georgia. So at this point, I'm looking at 3-2. Tennessee, they play South Carolina. Yes, 4-2. I'll give them a slight win there. Alabama's going to win that. So that's 4-3. Excuse me, not 4-3. That would be 4-4 at this point. Excuse me, actually 3-4. I'm going bonkers over here. Okay, 3-4. Actually, you know what? I'm having some issues with my math right now because once they play Alabama, it'll be 4-4. Once they play Kentucky, it'll be 5-4. Southern Miss 6-4. Missouri, I'm looking at a 7-4. LSU's just stronger overall. 7-5. Vanderbilt 8-5. So not quite the best of years for Tennessee, but a solid year. And you could you could say that sure that may be a decent game. So that's our situation here. Next up, we are going to move on to number 24 team in the AP Top 25, Washington State. Now, Washington State comes out with an 8-5 record. Of course, a disappointing loss to Washington later in the year, but a solid year overall. What happened that year was they actually lost to Eastern Washington, terrible start. They lost to Boise State. They're 0-2. Then they just go all over Idaho as they win 56-6. Then they beat Oregon. They beat Stanford, UCLA, Arizona State, Oregon State, coming out of nowhere to win, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row. They're 6-2. At that point, then they win 2 more against Arizona and California. They're 8-2, and that's when they take the losses. First one to Colorado, they go to 8-3. Then you're looking at Washington as they fall to 8-4. And then they did get defeated in the Holiday Bowl to Minnesota. So an 8-5 season, but they look pretty strong overall, especially in that period where they bounced back to from disappointing losses to Eastern Washington and Boise State. This year, let's take a look at the schedule. All right, Montana State, easy one, 1-0. Boise State. Here's where things could get interesting because we're looking at a pretty solid, at least in my opinion, Boise State team. So, but I'm going to go with Washington State there. Against Oregon State, just a better team. Washington State gets the win. Nevada, Washington State gets the win. USC, here's where the good teams come in. USC, I'm going to say, gets the win. Oregon. In this conversation, this one's a tougher one, at least for me personally, with, what could be a solid Oregon team, but I'm going to go Washington State. When it comes to what's next on the schedule, You got California, Washington State, Colorado, losing a little bit there. So Washington State, Arizona, Washington State, Stanford that's going to be a Stanford win. When they play Utah, which should come to an interesting game. I'm thinking Utah is actually going to get a win there. And then you're looking at right here Washington, and with Washington they're obviously going to lose to Washington. So let's just total up. I've got a loss to Washington, Utah, Stanford, and USC. That's 4 losses. So in the end, it's going to be an 8-4 year over here. Okay. So a pretty solid year here. Once again, similar to the year that Tennessee is going to have. So you'd say Tennessee edge Washington State just because of how solid they are. Next up, let's take a look at Texas. Longhorns making it to number 23 last year. Where were they at? Longhorns were pretty solid. Okay, so Longhorn football, we were looking at, a half solid year. It started out good. You have a Notre Dame win. Then you have UTEP win. Then you lose to Cal. You lose to Oak State. You lose to Oklahoma. It should be mentioned that these were fairly close games. You win against Iowa State. You lose against Kansas State. Then you go out and win against Baylor, win against Texas Tech, and then lose out against West Virginia, Kansas, and TCU. These were fairly close games, but just not a great year for Texas. Here's where I put it this year. I think the Texas Longhorns will be a little bit better overall than they have been this year. I feel like they can pull off some of the ones they're supposed to get. But here's how it's going to go. Number 1, you're starting with Maryland. That's a win. San Jose State. So win. USC is going to be a loss. Iowa State a win. Kansas State, I'm looking at a close win. Kansas State's one of those underrated teams in the Big 12 that can make things interesting. But at this point, you're 4-1, which is pretty nice. Oklahoma, that's a loss. Make things 4-2. Then Oklahoma State's it's a loss, 4-3. Then you're looking at Baylor, which is going to be a win. And after that, what you're looking at is you're looking at TCU, which could make things interesting in that game, but I'm going to say it's going to be a win. Kansas, a win. West Virginia, I'm going to say a loss. And then Texas Tech is going to be a win. So a decent season. Your losses coming from Texas Tech, I'm thinking TCU, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and USC. So that's 5 losses. A better year if you're at a 7-5 level. Now, Tom Herman, Texas coach, is saying Texas is not a top 25 football team. So that could be interesting. A huge headline there. He's just thinking not ready yet, and he's probably going to be right. Good news for Texas as well. 4-star OT prospect Rafty Jeremiah commits to Texas over UCLA, so more star power coming to Texas. The main question here is, can Tom Herman take good care of that star power and get things done? We're going to start to see it this year, but I'm going to guess he's going to do fairly well. But in the end, he's going to get ousted because he's not going to reach that championship level that is expected. All right, so who is next on our list? I'll tell you who's next. We've got West Virginia, who did pretty well last year. 10-3 record as WVU football. Has done decently there, but question is, how well can they do this year? My view, first you go up against VTech. VTech's a loss. That's 0-1. Then at East Carolina, 1-1. Del State, 2-1. Kansas, 3-1. TCU, 4-1. Texas Tech, 5-1. Baylor, 6-1. Oklahoma State. That will be a good game, but Oak State's going to get the win. 6-2. Iowa State, 7-2. Kansas State. I'm going to think it's going to be their another loss for them. I think Kansas State's going to be a power here. So that's going to be 7-3. Texas is going to be a win at 9-3. Then Oklahoma will be a loss. So 9-4 will be how they will finish. Okay, let's move on to VTech, Virginia Tech football. See how things are going to go over there. And here is what's going on. Headline alert. Virginia Tech offense making progress. Defense dealing with injuries. So not good news. But I think it's a strong team overall. Much like a UNC team a couple of years back. So what I'm going to say is they're going to get the win against West Virginia, Delaware, East Carolina, Old Dominion. They're 4-0. Then they lose to Clemson. That makes it 4-1. They beat Boston College 5-1. They beat UNC 6-1. They beat Duke 7-1. They have trouble at Miami, and they're going to stumble a little bit. 7-2. Georgia Tech 8-2. Pitt is going to be 9-2, and then Virginia 10-2. So a strong season, I'm thinking, for VT right here. So then we've got K-State, Kansas State, which has been a consistent power in football. So let's break that down now. Last year, their record was 9-4. By the way, Virginia Tech 10-4. And here is what is going to go on here. I'm thinking for K-State. Central Arc win 1-0. Charlotte win 2-0. Vanderbilt, actually a close game, I think, but a win 3-0. Baylor 4-0. Texas, a little bit of a stumble, 4-1. TCU 5-1. Oklahoma 5-2. Kansas 6-2. Texas Tech 7-2. West Virginia 8-2. And here's Oklahoma State. That's 9-3. And then Iowa State 10-3. So that's actually pretty solid, if I do say so myself. A one-game improvement right there for Kansas State. Last year, South Florida was 11-2. If they want to get to a college football playoff conversation, if they even want to be in the conversation, we're thinking they need to be undefeated. Can they do that? Let's find out. Well, first of all, a very important thing for teams like this is non-conference. What are you looking at for non-conference if you're USF? It's not looking too shiny for you. You're looking at crappy teams. And I'm just about to go through the entire schedule, which does not look too good for a CFP bid. Okay, first up, San Jose State, win. Stony Brook, win. Con, win. They may have a close game at Illinois, but a win. Okay, that is about the worst Big Ten team you can schedule to play, just in general. I mean, why would you pick Illinois? Because you're going to win 4-0. Temple, It'll be one that they'll have to fight for, but a win, 5-0. East Carolina 6-0. UMass 7-0. Tulane 8-0. Cincinnati. I am thinking on Cincinnati it's going to be a 9-0 situation. After Cincinnati, you're facing Houston 10-0. Tulsa 11-0. UCF 12-0. But here's the question. It wouldn't surprise me if they stumbled against Illinois or maybe Houston or Cincinnati, somewhere on that schedule they could Temple. Temple actually wouldn't be that big of a surprise if there was a stumble for me. But I assume there'll be one stumble. Even if they're undefeated, though, would they get into the playoff? I'll answer that question in just a little bit. All right, let's move on to number 18 in the rankings. Last year, they were 9-4, and they're from the ACC. Who is it? The Miami Hurricanes. And this year, I'm liking what I'm seeing from that Miami Hurricanes football team. All right, you start with BCU. Yeah, you heard me right. BCU. Okay, that is a win. Arkansas State won 2-0. How's non-conference shaping up? Not that great so far. Florida State, that is a close loss, 2-1. Toledo win, 3-1. Duke 4-1. Georgia Tech 5-1. Syracuse 6-1. UNC a close fought win, 7-1. Virginia Tech 8-1. Notre Dame. Now that presents an interesting situation here. You have a Notre Dame team going up against a Miami team. Always an interesting situation. But I'm thinking at the end of the day, when we go back to the drawing board, it is going to have to be 9-1. As they will get the win there, especially at home. Then you have Virginia 10-1, Pittsburgh 11-1. So Mark Rich gets things going here, in my opinion, for the ACC Coastal. As that division, in terms of teams, the best teams right now, there's only one way to put it, in my opinion. I feel like Miami is at the level. I really do feel like Miami is on the level where they can square up against Clemson or Florida State representing the Coastal. And I feel like Miami's in that situation. The question is, they'll lose to Florida State during the season. So can they face Florida State? Can they face Clemson? That is my question that I have got to ask. Another team from Florida comes from the SEC. We got Florida Gators. Woo-hoo! Just kidding, I'm not a Florida Gator fan. So, situation there, 9-4 last year. This year, how are they going to square up? They've got the defense, but let's put it this way. They haven't shown much offense. In fact, they've been terrible when it comes to offense. So, yeah. But they're going to face a lot of star power on offense and defense when they face Michigan. Problem is, untrained raw star power. Florida gets the win over the overrated. Okay, this is where the AC cold truth first comes out. Your conference, Big Ten, someone else's conference, the SEC. All right, let's play it. Let's go boxing. All right, sure. Clemson, great job last year. You got to win. Great job. You're a good team. Here's the only problem. SEC beats your Big Ten bud. all right? And that wasn't even that Big Ten that we faced last year. Who's semi-legitimate if we go on an SEC clash? Not your little Big Ten. Well, guess who it is? It's the ACC. So get whipped, Big Ten, because you know that I know that you know that the Big Ten is complete trash. So, sorry, Michigan, you're a loser. All right, Northern California. How are they going to, Colorado, I messed that up. Yeah, they just look similar to the Cal Golden Bears, but they also look so similar because they're losers. Northern Colorado Bears get whipped. Florida gets the win. Play Tennessee. That'll be interesting, but I've got to give this one to Florida. 3-0. Kentucky a shootout, but 4-0. They're able to get something going there as the defense comes up in the end. With Vanderbilt, that's 5-0. With LSU, they take a loss, 5-1. Texas A&M, a narrow win, 6-1. Georgia, 6-2. Missouri, 7-2. South Carolina, 8-2. UAB, 9-2. Florida State, 9-3. So a very similar year to last year. That's what I'm seeing out of this Florida Gator team. All right, next up, Louisville. You know why? Guess who's back? Our good pal, Heisman Trophy winner, none other than Lamar Jackson. Now, last year, they cruised to a 9-4 season, but they did take a loss, of course. And you know where that loss came from? It came from an SEC team. Wah-ha. Let's go LSU. I'm not an LSU fan, by the way. I just gotta say. Your crappy other conferences compared to someone else's crappy SEC conference. No comparison. Okay, let's get started here. First of all, we're looking at Purdue. And here's my thought on Louisville versus Purdue. Louisville won 1-0, just so you how bad the Big Ten is. UNC, a hard-fought win, 2-0. Clemson, a great game, thinking, but it's going to be a loss. 2-1. Kent State, we're looking at 3-1. Murray State, 4-1. NC State, hard-fought battle, in my opinion, but 5-1. Boston College, 6-1. Florida State, another loss, 6-2. Wake Forest, 7-2. Virginia, 8-2. Syracuse, 9-2. Kentucky, 10-2. So, a solid season for Louisville. In fact, an improvement, in my opinion. All right, we are barely through our rankings. We've got a lot more to go. Number 15, Georgia football. Now, last year, when Mark Richt first took over, it was 8-5. So not bad, not great. This year, much more well-rounded. When Margaret left and Kirby Smart took over, we were looking at 8-5. Here's the situation this year. Versus App State, it's a win, 1-0. Notre Dame, 2-0. Samford, 3-0. Emma State, 4-0. Tennessee, fairly close, but 5-0. Vanderbilt, 6-0. Missouri, 7-0. Florida, 8-0. South Carolina, 9-0. The first loss and only loss, Auburn, 9-1. Kentucky, 10-1. And then Georgia Tech, 11-1. But I will say, don't be surprised if they take a loss to Florida. Maybe interesting right there, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Georgia football, in a huge situation. They're going to win the SEC East, but can they beat the competitor out of the SEC West? Good question. We'll get into that. All right, pals over at Stanford. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? Smarty Pants. Yeah, Smarty Pants is getting good this year, in my opinion, as they are in number 14, coming out of a 10-3 season, so another 10-win season. Here's how it's going to work. All right. First of all, and considering Christian McCaffrey left, it's going to get harder. Luckily, Rice is first up for dinner, 1-0 right there. USC, we're looking at, let's just say an easy win for USC. 1-1, San Diego State, 2-1, but a relatively close game. UCLA, I'm thinking 3-1. Arizona State, 4-1. Utah, close, but 5-1. Oregon, 6-1. Oregon State, 7-1. Washington State, hard-fought win, 8-1. Washington, 8-2. California, 9-2. And then Notre Dame, 10-2. So a solid season once again from the Cardinal, but just not in that championship conversation right now. All right, let's take a look at LSU football back into the SEC corner. That is, they had a pretty good season last year, but just not up to expectations. Said Ogeron took over. So that means 8-4. All right. So here we go. Beginning with BYU, a close game, in fact, but 1-0. Chattanooga 2-0, Emma State 3-0, Mississippi State. Syracuse 4-0, Troy 5-0, Florida close 6-0. Auburn 6-1. Keep an eye out there. Ole Miss close 7-1 bounce back. Alabama lost 7-2. Arkansas, look out for little Arky coming from underneath. All right, our situation. Arkansas is a win. 8-2. Tennessee will also make things interesting, but 9-2. Texas A&M should be interesting as well, but 10-2. So a pretty solid season for LSU, but obviously from what we've seen, it won't be enough. Who's up next? Auburn in the number 12 spot, coming off of a loss from Oklahoma in the bowl. They're 8-5. Can they do better this year? Well, with a new quarterback, Jarrett Stidham, they should be able to do well. Let's take a look at it. All right. First of all, Georgia Southern, that's a win. All right, Clemson. This is a huge topic right here. Will Clemson or Auburn get a win here? I do want to bring up the FPI quickly. Auburn is ahead of Clemson by 1. Auburn's number 5, Clemson's number 6. Now, things are pointing out to a 10-3 season for Auburn. So, let's see what the situation there. Do you need 2 losses during the season? Where those losses come from? Well, I can think of 2 right off the bat, maybe the bowl game. But I actually think Auburn's going to beat Clemson, as they have really a hole left in them. Think about it. You've got Deshaun Watson gone. Deshaun Watson's now playing preseason. You've got Mike Williams, huge NFL receiver for LA Chargers right now. He's gone. So, this is what I'm thinking. Auburn gets the win. It's going to be very close, but I think in the very end, right before the quarter's over, Jared Stidham proves himself and gets a win. Mercer, easy one. Missouri, easy one. Mississippi State, not the easiest of wins, but 5-0. Ole Miss, not the easiest of wins, 6-0. LSU, very close, but I'm going to call it in favor of Auburn. 7-0 right there. Arkansas, 8-0, but close. Texas A&M, another close one, 9-0. Georgia, a thriller, coming down to the last minute, but 10-0. LA Monroe, 11-0. Then Alabama, and I'm not going to tell you my thoughts for that until later when we get to Alabama, which, of course, is number 1 in the polls. Oh, I shouldn't have gave that away. Oh, well, you know it's last. All right, Michigan. Let's move on to good old Michigan football. How will they do this year? What am I thinking on good old Michigan football, which was 10-3 last year? Here's what I'm thinking. Lost to Florida, 0-1. Cincinnati win, 1-1. Air Force 2-1. Purdue 3-1. Just look at how easy this Big Ten schedule is. Michigan State 4-1. Indiana, close but 5-1. Penn State, that's a loss, 5-2. Rutgers 6-2. Minnesota. I'm going to call this one as a close loss, 6-3. Maryland 7-3. Wisconsin, another close loss I'm going to call here, 7-4. Ohio State 7-5. So that is incredible right there, and just not the season that I think deserves the correct ranking there, but they rank how they want to. All right, next up, guess who was in the Big 12 and 10-3? You got it, Oklahoma State football. Oh, one more thing on Michigan before I leave. Keith Washington is going to transfer from Michigan, defensive back, and all kinds of terrible stuff going on right here with transfers and a lot of frustration for Michigan right here, which is it's presenting an interesting situation as this young talent is just saying, okay, I'm doing what I want to do, regardless of the Jim Harbaugh hype. Oh, by the way, Jim Harbaugh was rated the most overrated coach in college football. Nick Saban was actually number 2. Was underrated? Well, tell me who's the Kansas State coach? Kansas State football coach. You know the stadium's named after him. You know it. Yep, Bill Snyder, who's been pretty consistent. Dave Cutcliffe of Duke was on that list. It was a decent list, and all people haven't gotten their fair share of credit. Yes, for Oklahoma State, they started against Tulsa 1-0, South Alabama 2-0, Pitt 3-0, relatively close, TCU relatively close 4-0, Texas Tech relatively close because they're both shootouters, but 5-0, Baylor 6-0, Texas close one 7-0, West Virginia 8-0, close one there. All right, finally they stumble. Oklahoma 8-1. Then you have Iowa State, which is going to be 9-1. Kansas State 10-1. Kansas 11-1. So you can probably guess my prediction from Oklahoma already. But first, we've got 2 more to go. Number 9, Wisconsin. The disappointing loss in the Big Ten Championship. They ended up 11-3. This year they've got the odds stacked in their favor in certain ways. Here's how I think their season's going to go. Utah State 1-0, Florida Atlantic 2-0. And by the way, that's Lane Kiffin's very own Florida Atlantic. BYU 3-0, Northwestern 4-0, Nebraska 5-0, Purdue 6-0, Maryland 7-0. Just look at the poor quality teams in the schedule. I'm going to analyze it right now because this is ridiculous. Illinois 8-0, Indiana relatively close but 9-0, Iowa relatively close 10-0, Michigan 11-0, Minnesota 12-0. I'm saying they're running the table, and they may get a close loss, but look at this schedule. Okay. All right, I'm going to group this in 3 categories. Okay? Decent teams, fairly decent teams, crap. All right, let's start with decent teams. Well, Michigan. Okay. BYU, I guess. Fairly decent teams. Iowa, Indiana, Minnesota. Okay, actually, I'm going to put Minnesota in decent teams. So we're stuck with, okay, I'll be nice. Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota in decent teams. Indiana and BYU in fairly decent teams. And then crap, we've got 1, Utah State, 2, Florida Atlantic, 3, Northwestern, 4, Nebraska, 5, Purdue, 6, Maryland, 7, Illinois. 7 crap teams. Crap. Okay, just to, if that didn't make sense to you, that's absolutely ridiculous. Another Big Ten screw-up. All right, Washington has gotten some upvotes over here, as they are, they're in a good position after they made it to the college football playoff last year, the Final Four. Of course, they did end up losing. It wasn't a bad game. I thought they did a decent job against Alabama. Obviously, not as well as they could have done, as at this point they are in the number 8 position, the record 12-2. But Chris Peterson, he was also high on the underrated list. I mean, this is not a situation where you're thinking, this team's crap. I mean, it's still a good team. 24-7 was the score against Alabama, but it was interesting. So here's the situation. You're starting out with Rutgers, and this is where, once again, they barely. I mean, their out-conference schedule is not good. Rutgers 1-0, Montana 2-0. Look at that. Fresno State 3-0. All non-conference, all complete crap. Colorado tougher than it looks, but 4-0. Oregon State 5-0, Cal 6-0, Arizona State 7-0, UCLA 8-0, Oregon 9-0. Close game against Stanford, but I'm going to have to give them the nod, 10-0. Close against Utah, 11-0. And then Washington State is going to make it 12-0. So I still have them running the table. Question is, what does that mean for USC coming up? And let me remind you of the divisions of the Pac-12. We have Washington running the table, and then and then I'll show you my USC predictions. But that's going to be a fun championship game, because 2 great teams would face off. Maybe I've a different team than USC, but you'll see. All right. Next up, who would I have? I've got number 7, Oklahoma, and they last year were at an 11-2 position. Oklahoma looking to make a statement this year, saying, oh no, you know what? We are going to come out. We are going to play well. We are going to make a bid here As Baker Mayfield and company still with Oklahoma, it's gonna be pretty good. All right, UTEP 1-0. Ohio State. Ohio State. Ohio State. Ohio State. I'm gonna save that one for later. Tulane 2-0. Baylor 3-0. Oh, Iowa State 4-0. Texas relatively close 5-0. Kansas State close 6-0. Texas Tech 7-0. Oklahoma State very close 8-0. TCU 9-0. Kansas 10-0. West Virginia close but 11-0. So what am I thinking? What am I thinking when it comes to Ohio State? So I've got Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. But what about Oklahoma? We'll check that out. All right, Penn State football coming in big after last year's win in the Big Ten championship, but a Rose Bowl loss that was one to see. This time, Penn State is thinking, you know what, we might get a huge win here. Maybe even a top 4 appearance, but is that just all talk or can they actually make it? Akron 1-0. Pittsburgh 2-0. Georgia State 3-0. Iowa 4-0. Indiana 5-0. Oh boy, another terrible schedule. Northwestern 6-0. Michigan close 7-0. Ohio State, I'm going to have to say that is going to be, it'll be interesting, but at the end of the day, that's a loss. 7-1. Michigan State 8-1. Rutgers 9-1. Nebraska 10-1. Maryland 11-1, and that means in the Big Ten championship, let's hear it. Ding, ding, ding. Who do I've got? I have got Ohio State against Wisconsin. We'll hear Ohio State. We'll hear that in just a second. But first, Clemson, the champions of last year, the AP Top 25 poll, they are at number 25. Let's take a look here. All right, so Kent State 1-0. Auburn, that is a key game, and I'm now going to give you my prediction. Oh, actually, and once again, Auburn gets the win there 2-0. Louisville 3-0, Boston College 4-0, Virginia Tech 5-0, Wake Forest 6-0, Syracuse 7-0, 8-0, Georgia Tech, NC State 9-0, Florida State. Here's a huge game. I'm going to skip that real quick. Citadel 10-0, South Carolina 11-0. So they're running the table, but what is the Florida State prediction? I'll tell you once we get to Florida State. Next up, number 4, USC football. How's USC going to do this year? Let's take a look. Western Michigan 1-0. Stanford 2-0. Texas, all right. Not bad. But a win. 3-0. Cal 4-0. Washington State 5-0. Oregon State 6-0. Utah 7-0. Notre Dame 8-0, Arizona State 9-0, Arizona 10-0, Colorado 11-0, UCLA 12-0, running the table. Both teams, USC and Washington, but only one will get into the playoff, in my opinion. Number 3, Florida State. Do you remember that game against Michigan? Oh, it was a thriller. Oh, I loved it. All right, they're coming out against Alabama. Who's going to win? I'm sorry. I can't tell you yet, but I think you'll probably know about my prediction. All right. Other than that, LA Monroe 1-0, Miami 2-0, NC State 3-0, Wake Forest 4-0, Duke 5-0, Louisville 6-0, Boston College 7-0, 8-0 Syracuse. Against Clemson, I have a slight win. So 9-0 there. Del State 10-0, Florida 11-0. You're waiting for Alabama, I know it. You're waiting for it. But first, Ohio State. You want to hear that good old Sooner prediction? Who's the winner there? But first, all right, Indiana 1-0. All right, honestly, let me give this to you. I think we're going to flip the script. Oklahoma, narrowly, with Baker Mayfield and company, gets the win for the Sooners as they take in a win. So Buckeyes 1-1, Army 2-1, UNLV 3-1, Rutgers 4-1, Maryland 5-1, Nebraska 6-1. It just makes this is almost funny just looking how crappy this schedule is. AC Cold Truth. All right, let's keep it going here. Keep it going. Once again, Nebraska 6-1, State 7-1. Oh, Iowa 8-1, Michigan State 9-1, Illinois 10-1, Michigan 11-1. All right, not a bad year for Ohio State, and then we're going to finish off with good old Alabama. How's good old Alabama going to do? How are they going to do? This is the big boy because you've got Florida State and Iron Bowl. We're going to start with Florida State. Okay. Florida State is going to be a 1-0 win for Alabama. Fresno State 2-0, Colorado State 3-0, Vanderbilt 4-0, Ole Miss 5-0, Texas A&M 6-0, Arkansas 7-0, Tennessee 8-0. Very close against LSU, but a win. 9-0, Mississippi State 10-0, Mercer 11-0, Auburn. That is the game. The game of 2017-18. It will not be the Iron Bowl. In fact, it will not be the game to watch. It will be the Iron Bowl. So what does that mean for you? It's Auburn, it's Alabama, 2017-18. Jared Stidham and company. Good running back, good offense, better defense. Alabama retains a good defense and a great offense. Who wins? I'm going to say that because of Jared Stidham's experience, because of what I've seen him do, because of the rest of the factors, because this is on Auburn turf primarily, Auburn gets the win and in that one game wins the SEC West Division. And that's going to do it for the AP Top 25. Let me quickly go through the ESPN FBI. Texas 25, Washington State 24, UCLA 23, NC State 22, 21 Oregon, 20 Notre Dame, Tennessee 19, TCU 18, Louisville 17, Michigan 16, number 15 Miami, number 14 Florida, number 13 Georgia, number 12 USC, number 11 Stanford, number 10 LSU, number 9 Wisconsin, number 8 Penn State, number 7 Washington, number 6 Clemson, number 5 Auburn, number 4 Oklahoma, number 3 FSU, number 2 Alabama, number 1 OSU, Ohio State, the Ohio State University, blah, 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 Big Ten, AC called truth, failure. Okay, let me quickly, USF fans, I love you, but your team, sure, you'll run the table, but Look, he'll get a good ball game. He'll lose. And let me just tell you, I'm so sorry, but you are not going to be in the college football playoff. Before I do those predictions, though, let's get to the Power 5 conferences. I'm just going to go on a random board, and I'll tell you the odd one out. SEC, first of all. I'm saying Auburn v. Georgia. Auburn gets a close one there, but it won't be as close as the game against Alabama. Auburn will, let me just go ahead and be clear, they will be number 1 in the college football playoff going in. Next in, Washington plays USC. That's going to be an exciting game. I'm just going to tell you, I'm thinking right there you're looking at, I mean, honestly, with that game, it's going to be close, but I'm thinking USC there. USC is in the playoff. They're undefeated, so that's going to be pretty darn useful coming in there. So I'll give you their ranking just a bit. Let's do Big 12. Oklahoma plays Oklahoma State. Oklahoma gets the win, and they're coming in very good shape as well, undefeated. And then you're looking at an ACC that you're going to find 2 teams. You're going to find a Florida State team and a Miami team. Florida State will get the win. And finally, Big 10 action. Oh, we love it so much. Oh, Ohio State smashes Wisconsin. Gets in the play. Okay. Who's going to get in the playoff? This is what I love about this year. I feel like there are going to be multiple undefeated teams that are going to try and get in the playoff. Ohio State will not be an undefeated team, whereas USC, as we broke down that schedule, will they be an undefeated team? According to what I've seen, everything should say yes. Will Auburn be an undefeated team? Yes, we put them in the number 1 slot. They're SEC. Will Florida State be an undefeated team? No. So that is where you have that competition. Ohio State versus Florida State schedule. And then you have your friends in the Big 12, Oklahoma, as an undefeated team. So who's in? Definitely Oklahoma, definitely USC, definitely Auburn. Auburn's number 1. Number 2, in looking at the USC and Oklahoma schedules, you know, USC is just so, at the end of the, just looking at these schedules, I feel like there are more better teams in the Pac-12. But Ohio State, that one big game for Oklahoma, gets in the number 2 slot for Oklahoma. Number 3, USC. Who's the odd man out here? Florida State or Big Ten's very own Ohio State? Okay, let me break down the games to watch for Ohio State. All right. Now we have an Oklahoma loss on that schedule, but that's a non-conference loss, and you're running the table otherwise. Although the good games, I mean, you got to be ambitious to call Michigan a good game. Maybe I'd say it's a decent game. Penn State, good game. Not the best of schedules, and then you're considering against FSU. FSU loses to Alabama. The difference is that Alabama's not in the playoff. And good win against Florida. Good win against Clemson. That's 2 good wins that are going to look very good in front of the selection committee. And then pretty good win against NC State, good win against Miami, good loss, if there's such thing as one against Alabama. Here you're looking at a good loss against Oklahoma, and then a good win against Penn State and Michigan. Iowa, pretty good one. Overall, I'm just going to have to go with Big Ten solid might. because Oklahoma's in the playoff. That is that thing that's going to get Ohio State over the hump. They played an undefeated team in Wisconsin, whereas Oklahoma State, whereas you're playing a Clemson team that you're playing Miami team that you beat during the season. It's just not the same quality. I think Ohio State is going to be in that number 4 slot. So just to recap for you guys, number 4, Ohio State. Number 3, I'm looking at a great team in good old USC. Number 2, Oklahoma. And number 1, Auburn. So number 1 versus number 4, Auburn, Ohio State, similar to an Alabama-Ohio State matchup. I'm going to go with Auburn. I feel like Auburn's going to smash them, in fact. So Auburn gets the win there. 2v3, we are looking at Oklahoma taking on USC. USC just has so much star power. They're going to get narrow. So number 1 versus number 3. That's our final situation. And a very close game. Extremely close. Auburn gets the win over USC. Now, I just want to say Auburn is a pick out. It's not a pick out of nowhere, but it's not a popular pick. Let's put it that way. This year, I just have utmost confidence in their ability to win. So I feel like they're going to be in that number 1 slot. And then, of course, Oklahoma. They're going to have a great season, but it's just not going to be enough against USC's star power. In the number 4 position, you're looking at a good Ohio State team, but not a SEC ready Ohio State team. So those are my college football predictions, and that's my college football season preview. Except for one more thing, I want to mention the overrated coaches and underrated coaches of college football. According to CBS Sports, I found this very interesting when you consider all the things that come with this. But so Jim Harbaugh, 13%, most overrated coach. Nick Saban, most overrated coach, 9%. Lane Kiffin, 9%. Lovie Smith from Illinois is 9%. Brian Kelly, 4%. Notre Dame. Tom Herman, Texas, 4%. Came out of Houston. And Will Muschamp's 4% from South Carolina. 48% actually chose not to answer. Most underrated coach, Bill Snyder, Kansas State, 24%. Huge response there. Chris Peterson, Washington, 15%. David Cutcliffe, Duke, 10%. Ken Numia, I'm not sure how to say that. Numatalo Ululo or something. But he's from Navy. He's a great coach. These 4 coaches I thought were very good choices. And then at the end, and then you also have 41% for 10 other coaches. So basically, that's it for ASEAN's very first podcast. And once again, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in today. My name's Alexander Cook. I'm going to be with you throughout the season. Once again, the days I'll be with you I'm going to be with you on Sunday mornings, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, and Friday nights during the CFB season only. I'm going to do as many live streams as I can, especially on Wednesday nights. I'm going to put in that effort for a specific time. And please check out my YouTube page. Please check out my SoundCloud page. Also, I would deeply appreciate if you checked out my Twitter account. I've got 2 of them accounts. So ASEAN podcast page is at ASEAN podcast, which would be twitter.com/ACOnPodcast, as well as my personal account, which extends to last year from Gridiron Glory, twitter.com/TheFootballKids. And my Radionomy page is coming very soon. Be ready for some streaming there. Just thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Deeply appreciate if you spread the word and helped out a little bit there. Well, thanks again, and I hope you have a great night. Be sure to tune in to our next podcast, which is coming actually very, very soon. My next podcast, believe it or not, is actually going to be Friday night. And that is going to be previewing the Saturday night college football fiasco. Just crap for college football. But it'd be nice to see what the news is like then. Saturday is gonna be nice on college football. Bet it won't be great in terms of the game qualities, but I'll get into that then. And just in the meantime, have a great rest of the week. I hope you have fun at work, or if you're at school, good luck in all your workplaces, and have a great week. And now, tuning out instead of in is Alexander Cook of AC on. AC Cold Truth! Your team is trash.